It's December 2nd here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with the ongoing Ukraine crisis and North Korean troop deployment to Russia. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy once again stressed that North Korean troops are being killed in Russia, while new EU leaders visited Kyiv as a show of support on their first day in office. Syria is seeing a return to civil war after a new rebel coalition staged a surprise attack in the country's second-largest city, Aleppo, over the weekend in an attempt to take more government-controlled territory. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has tapped in-laws to serve in his new administration, with daughter Tiffany's father-in-law, Mossad Bulos, picked as senior advisor on Arab and Middle Eastern affairs, while the father of eldest daughter Ivanka's husband, Jared Kushner, is Trump's choice for ambassador to France. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy once again said North Korean soldiers deployed in western Russia have been killed and wounded, while continuing to call for NATO membership to new EU officials. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
In an exclusive interview with Japan's Kyodo News, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said Sunday that a number of North Korean troops deployed to Russia's Kursk region had been killed in action. Zelenskyy did not say how many soldiers had been killed or wounded so far, but said that it's almost certain that the troops were to be used as cannon fodder. The Ukrainian president also stressed that support for his country from its partners is not enough, and again stressed the need for NATO membership, saying the war has entered a complicated period, with Russia advancing faster in the eastern part of Ukraine. Also on Sunday, 3 senior EU officials made a surprise visit to Kyiv to hold talks with Zelenskyy on how to bolster support from the bloc. EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy Kaja Kallas, European Council President Antonio Costa, and Enlargement Commissioner Marta Kos were all in Kyiv for the meeting. After the talks, Costa announced that the EU will continue to provide Ukraine with financial assistance, including a monthly payment of 1.5 billion euros for a full year. The money would come from the proceeds of Russia's frozen assets and can be used for military purposes. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has upped his push to win the war, approving a record-high military budget for the 2025 fiscal year. According to the Russian government's website on Sunday, around 32.5% of the budget drawn up for 2025 has been allocated for national defense, amounting to around $145 billion. With the foreign ministers of the 32 NATO countries holding their last meeting of the year later this week, a meeting of the NATO-Ukraine Council consultative body is also scheduled. There, the Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha is likely to push for Ukraine's membership of the military alliance. President Zelenskyy, during an interview with British broadcaster Sky News, said membership will allow him to negotiate a ceasefire deal with Russia. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
When things were supposed to settle down after the Israel-Hezbollah ceasefire deal, rebel forces in Syria launched a surprise offensive and have now seized control of most of the city of Aleppo. Our Kim Bo-kyung has more.
Just as a ceasefire began between Hezbollah and Israel, another conflict flared up in the Middle East, this time in Syria. On Sunday, Syrian military rushed reinforcements to the northwest of the country, and both Syrian and Russian aircraft carried out a series of strikes on insurgents who have seized the country's second-largest city of Aleppo. More than 370 people, including dozens of civilians, have so far been killed, according to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. Rebel groups are now pushing south toward the neighboring city of Hama, coming on the 5th day of the surprise offensive. The rebels, led by the Islamist group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and allied factions, began the assault last Wednesday, leading Syrian forces to announce a temporary troop withdrawal on Saturday, citing the need to regroup for a counter-offensive. The fighting marks a major escalation in Syria's years-long civil war, which began with popular uprisings across the country in 2011. The conflict had mostly remained stagnated since 2020, with the rebel groups having been largely contained to a small portion of Idlib province. That is why one expert called this one of the biggest challenges President Bashar al-Assad now faces.
It's one of the biggest challenges that Bashar al-Assad has ever had to face during his time as Syrian leader since 2000 and since the civil war began in 2011. It's very similar to the situation that he found himself in when the civil war first began.
Russia and Iran, Assad's primary allies, both vowed support, with the Kremlin having condemned the rebel offensive and have called for the swift restoration of constitutional order in the region. Iran dispatched its top diplomat Abbas Araqchi, who met with the Syrian president in Damascus on Sunday, saying Tehran would firmly support him in confronting terrorist attacks. However, with Russia's attention divided by the ongoing war against Ukraine and recent Israeli airstrikes having weakened Hezbollah as a fighting force, thereby diminishing Iran's capacity to assist Syria, experts say such a loss of critical support complicates Assad's position. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Russia-North Korea ties appear to be getting tighter, with a visit to Russia by the North's leader Kim Jong-un looking possible as early as May. What does this mean for our relations and for the Ukraine crisis? We're joined by Dr. Bruce Bennett. Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure.
So Russia has reportedly invited North Korean forces to its event to mark the 80th anniversary of the Soviet victory in World War II next year in May. Why such an invitation?
Well, Russia's trying to establish itself as a global superpower, having much broader control over the world like it used to during the Soviet era. When it invites North Korea, it's trying to appear to have yet one more ally towards that objective. That, of course, is not going to go over well with China, which also wants to be the global superpower. Both Russia and China want to displace the U.S. from its position, but they don't want necessarily the other to have that control.
Well, then, is a visit to Moscow by the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un to, lead the North Korean military for the event likely?
I think it's entirely possible. We don't really know. It depends. Kim is facing a fair amount of internal instability. You can see that in his decision to renounce unification at the end of last year, in his decision to send North Korean troops to Russia, both of which were very risky actions seeking to gain some greater control internally. He's taking some chances. Will he take the chance of leaving the country and leaving it in control of his sister or someone else? That's a really good question right now, which is hard to tell.
Dr. Bennett, we are just a month away from the time when Donald Trump returns to the Oval Office and has been very keen to end the Ukraine crisis. Now, the question is, what kind of course of action will Trump take regarding the crisis in Ukraine?
Oh, I think President-elect Trump will want to get together with Putin. He'll want to get together with Zelenskyy. He'll want to try to put a proposal on the table that his people are probably crafting now and probably reviewing with Russian and Ukrainian representatives now. I think he's going to want to move very quickly. We've noticed recently that Ukraine is prepared to talk about some details of a compromise situation. The question will be, is Putin ready to do that? And so I think he's already pressing ahead. He's not just sitting back and waiting for his time as president. And I think he plans to hit the ground running with something on the table and ready to go and talk with these two leaders to make final details complete.
Well, it looks like Trump will be just as active, or rather, aggressive as when it comes to handling North Korean issues. Now, apparently, the Trump administration is considering arranging direct talks with the North's leader, Kim Jong-un. What do you think Seoul should do then? Should we just, watch for now? Or should Seoul take separate actions?
Well, I think the first action Seoul needs to take is to be working with President Trump, President-elect Trump, the way that the Zelenskyy and Putin are apparently working with him. This is a time to coordinate positions. He is going to be the president of the United States, and while it's a little unusual to have that kind of foreign contact beforehand, I think it's important. But Trump clearly thinks he's got leverage on Kim Jong-un. The question is, does he really? Because Kim was seriously offended by Trump walking out of the Hanoi summit in 2019.
Right.
A lot of his advisors who had helped set up that summit paid very serious prices because of the failure of that summit. So I think this is not a foregone conclusion that he's going to meet with Kim Jong-un. I think that President Yoon and his personnel ought to be trying to coordinate, because this may be a much longer-term negotiation than President Trump probably wants to have.
Right. Still some, hard feelings lingering from the North Korean leader. Now, Dr. Bennett, before I let you go, Ukraine has long been asking South Korea to provide weapons. Now, do you think Seoul will wait until Trump 2.0 begins then? Is offering Ukraine weapons on hold for now?
Well, look, President Trump has been very clear that he views countries as being part of a coalition. He wants them to work together for global security and not just for bilateral security. South Korean public opinion is such that sending weapons to Ukraine isn't very popular from what I'm looking at in the polls. I think Trump will be wanting Yoon to try and build some support for that kind of position and to start talking with his people about that possibility. This is a coalition of free countries that Trump is going to want to see strengthened. And he's going to want Yoon as part of that cooperative effort in South Korea. So I think this is time for South Korea to start realizing that it's very hard under a Trump administration to only have Korean security. You've got to be looking at global security.
Alrighty, Dr. Bennett, thanks so much for sharing your insights with us. As always, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
South Korean Consul General to Shanghai, Kim Yong-jun, expressed hopes for improvement in Seoul-Beijing bilateral ties, as President Xi Jinping is widely expected to visit South Korea for the APEC summit slated next year in Gyeongju. During a meeting with Korean journalists visiting the Consul General in Shanghai last Thursday, Kim said it's time for bilateral ties to once again develop, citing Beijing's recent visa exemption policy for Koreans and a soon-to-be-held patent office chiefs meeting between Korea, China, and Japan. His comments also hinted at the possibility of resolving the difficulties Korean companies are facing in China if President Xi's visit to Korea is made. A near week-long meeting in Busan to pen a UN treaty to curb plastic pollution ended early Monday morning without reaching a minimum declaratory agreement, as the differences between countries failed to be resolved. The fifth UN Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee meeting in the southeastern port city was set to be the final session for countries to agree to a legally binding global treaty on limiting production and phasing out harmful chemicals. And with no agreement in place, the committee said it will take time to resolve the issue, adding that negotiations will resume at a later date. It's reported that the final agreement fell through as oil-producing countries, including Saudi Arabia, did not accept provisions on plastic production regulation. A musical producer here has been making remarkable strides on stages both at home and overseas, with ambitions to prove that language is no barrier in musicals. Our culture correspondent Song Jun spoke with Broadway's first Asian soul lead producer.
Just like the lyrics, Shin Chun-soo's career is roaring on. A trailblazer in Korean theater, he's the president and main producer of OD Company, one of the country's leading musical production companies. This year, he made history as the first Asian to serve as the sole lead producer of a Broadway musical. The Great Gatsby, a stage adaptation of F. Scott Fitzgerald's classic novel, has been running at the Broadway Theater since April, grossing over $1 million every week since its opening, and even winning a Tony Award for Best Costume Design. And the momentum doesn't stop there. Next year, the production will make its West End debut. So, what's the secret to crafting a musical that's set to perform at the world's two greatest theater capitals?
The Great Gatsby is a timeless masterpiece with themes like the pursuit of love and struggles across social classes that feel so relevant today. We wanted the production to feel like one grand party, combining dazzling stage aesthetics with a powerful sense of tragedy.
But Gatsby is just one chapter in Shin's career. Back at home, the beloved Korean production of Jekyll and Hyde is gearing up for its 9th season.
Jekyll and Hyde helped me establish myself as a producer. At the time, it was seen as revolutionary, bringing together fresh talent from actors and staff to producers. For this 20th anniversary production, we focused on every detail, crafting it as a gift, not just for the audience, but for ourselves as well.
With a repertoire that includes hits like Grease, Sweeney Todd, Man of La Mancha, and Il Tenore, how does he decide which stories to bring to life?
Classic literature has universal emotions that connect with everyone, and classic musicals have songs that leave a lasting impression. Sometimes I take risks with experimental works that push boundaries, but at the heart of it all is my commitment to creating high-quality productions for the audience.
Shin also shared his vision for bringing Korean musicals to a broader audience.
I remember being a British producer in 2001 who was surprised to hear Korean even had musicals. Now, with the growing cultural and economic influence, Korean musicals are gaining global attention. To keep growing, we must see the world as our stage and support young talent to create works with universal appeal.
And he'll keep working hard to make this happen.
My next goal is to stage a production with Korean actors performed in Korean. I believe musicals can transcend language, and this will showcase the talent of our actors and the excellence of Korean musicals.
It's a decades-long passion that's driving Korean musicals to new heights on the world stage. 송유진, Arirang News.
Now, let's take a look at the stories from around the world with our Kim Seong. Good morning, Seong.
Good morning, Dami.
So let's start with U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's new nominations for his administration, and it looks like he's really keeping it in the family.
Yeah, that's right, Dami. Trump announced several new picks over the weekend, including 2 of his in-laws for diplomatic positions and a new FBI director. Now, Trump announced Sunday that Massad Boulos, his daughter Tiffany's father-in-law, would serve as a senior advisor on Arab and Middle Eastern affairs, while Charles Kushner, father of Ivanka Trump's husband, Jared, was tapped as U.S. ambassador to France the day before. Opting not to mention that Boulos, a billionaire Lebanese-American businessman, is his daughter's father-in-law, he did, however, describe him as a deal-maker and highly respected in the business world. Now, real estate developer Kushner, his pick for ambassador to France, was pardoned by Trump in 2020 after a conviction on federal charges, including tax evasion. Trump called Kushner a strong advocate for the United States. Now, Trump also announced that his former aide, Kash Patel, will lead the FBI, although the incumbent director, Christopher Wray, whose 10-year term ends in 2027, will either have to be fired or resign for Patel to take the position immediately. The U.S. president-elect also said he plans to nominate Florida Sheriff Chad Chronister to lead the Drug Enforcement Agency. Thousands of pro-EU protesters in the Georgian capital, Tbilisi, continued for a 4th night on Sunday, following Thursday's announcement that the country's government would freeze EU accession talks for 4 years. Tensions are yet to subside, as some protesters gathered in Tbilisi's central Rustaveli Avenue were seen shooting fireworks toward police, who retaliated with water cannons and tear gas. Georgian news agency Interpress reported that protesters also blocked a road into the country's main commercial port in the Black Sea city of Spotty. According to local media, protests were seen in at least 8 cities and towns against the ruling Georgian Dream Party. The pro-Western Georgian president, Salome Zurabichvili, whose term is about to expire, called the current parliament illegitimate following allegations of fraud in last month's elections, while saying she would remain in office until new parliamentary elections are held.
So there is a deep crisis.
Moving over to the UK, a Second World War bunker near the southern English city of Portsmouth hosted the first ever fully underground British marathon on Saturday. A total of 87 runners participated in the unique run, with head torches attached to their helmets, running a total of 91 laps of a makeshift 460-metre course to complete the full 42.195 kilometres. After running almost 100 laps in the dark, narrow and damp tunnels, 48-year-old Michael Burke won the men's race with 3 hours and 42 minutes and 27 seconds record, while Laura Watts won the women's race with a time of 4 hours and 22 minutes. Another underground race will take place at the same venue next November. In India, hundreds of expectant mothers gathered for a mass baby shower organized at a local religious fair on Sunday. The fair, dedicated to the Hindu goddess Dhanama Devi, took place in the country's southern city of Haveri, where the female participants wore colorful traditional Indian saris and were given flower crowns as part of the ritual ceremony. The pregnant mothers received gifts of a variety of food items, including mangoes, tamarind and pickled cucumber, as elderly women blessed them. Now, one participant said that she felt very lucky to participate in this function.
It's a warmer start to the new week. Afternoon highs will hike to 13 degrees in the capital, going up nearly 5 degrees higher than yesterday. But there will be a sharp drop in temperatures overnight, waking up to -4 degrees in Seoul tomorrow. Now, the west of Jeollabuk-do province and central areas could see spotty rain into this afternoon. The capital area will be covered with lots of clouds for most of the day. Now, air quality is good for this morning, but dusty air will blow in from the afternoon. So we are expecting a higher level of fine dust for west of central areas, but the colder air tonight will push away those dust in the air. Checking on today's highs now, most parts will see highs going up 2 to 5 degrees higher. Daejeon, Daegu topping out at 17 degrees. Busan and Gyeongju at 18 degrees Celsius this afternoon. Now, it looks like we're going to have a promising weather for central areas, but Jeollado provinces will have some snow at the end of the week. Jeju Island will see spotty rain. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That's all we have for our Monday edition of New Day at Arirang. Have a wonderful start to the week.
How to survive in Korea. Weddings. Step 0. Attire. As a guest, dress formal to business casual. Avoid wearing all white, shorts or going topless. Step 1. Arrival time. arrive 30 minutes prior to the wedding ceremony. Too many cars, too many halls, too many people. There are many twists and turns. Take pictures and shake hands. And write your name vertically, not horizontally, in the guest book. Step 2. Or, shibor. 50,000 won, 100,000 won, 150,000 won. Cash gifts are given in these units. Decide on the amount based on your relationship. Write your name vertically on the envelope. Step 3. Wedding etiquette. Fill up the front row. Guests have 3 duties to fulfill: clapping, cheering, and taking pictures. Step 4. Dining. Take off your jacket. This will be your seat from now on. Start with the not your everyday delicacies. Kobe-jip. Yes. Bosa. Yes. Chili shrimps. Definitely yes. Kimbap. Yeah. Only if you can't live without it. No need to pile up food. You have more than one opportunity. Did you survive the wedding? Wait, did someone catch your eye? What are you waiting for? You're looking fine today.
bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Great news just for you. It's Monday, December 2nd here in Seoul. I'm Song Yujin, and you're watching News Generation. Today, we're joined by Kwon Ji-yeon.
Happy December.
And happy Monday. And Jessica Dainho.
Happy Monday and happy December.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Now, both here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. So, it's Monday, time to talk about the latest topics trending among the younger generation here in Korea. Now, if you're watching and you're a working mom, today's topic might feel especially close to home. In Korea, it was once almost expected for women to leave their jobs after getting married or starting a family. But now, times have changed and we're seeing more women balancing careers while raising children. And some recent statistics really highlight this change, right, Ji-yeon?
That's right. Well, let me give you some specific numbers. Recently, Statistics Korea released its 2024 first half regional employment survey on married women's employment. As of April 2024, the percentage of married women aged 15 to 54 experiencing career breaks has hit a historic low of 16%. Well, this marks a significant improvement compared to 19% in 2019. The trend demonstrates a steady decline over the years, dropping to 17% in both 2021 and last year, 2023, before reaching its current level. So these numbers reflect progress in the workforce, with more women maintaining their careers even after marriage and family commitments.
Right.
The data suggests that a shift towards greater working opportunities and support for working women, reflecting a more inclusive labour market here in Korea.
Right. It's great to see that we're seeing a steady decline in the number or in the percentage of women who are taking a career break after getting married. Now, the data Ji-yeon shows that once again, 16% of married women in Korea left the workforce after getting married, but we're still seeing 16% of them having a career break. Right. So, Jessica, I want to ask you, what are some of the most commonly cited reasons?
So in the stats, the most commonly cited were either getting a marriage or having to do the childcare or maternity leave. So it's not only limited to these, but also there was some relevance to how young your child was. So the younger your child was, the higher the lower the rate of employment. So there seems to be some relevance, not necessarily correlation, but definitely having to childcare or having a marriage or having to even have a maternity leave definitely affects in terms of hiring rate. And I can also speak from my own experience of having mums and aunts and even my friends who either have to choose between a career and maintaining an employment. And this also resulted in, and it is an actual term that is coined, it's called mom guilt. So this actually happens to a lot of working mums who, suffer from having to leave their children and go to work, and those who feel like they're not really meeting the expectation of what it is like to be a mum in a society where it's requiring mums to hold a lot of responsibilities in addition to having to maintain their position in the workplace.
Right, because they also want to do great at their job, but they also want to do great at caring for their children.
Absolutely,
So no wonder there is a term called mom guilt. But on a more positive note, 16% is the lowest, as Ji-yeon mentioned, the lowest percentage we've been seeing since relevant records began being compiled. So why do you think we're seeing fewer percentage of women leaving their jobs after marriage?
I think there will be many reasons behind these. In fact, well, the rise in dual income households has encouraged more women to continue working after marriage, as economic conditions and shifting gender roles support this trend. And also, flexible work arrangements and reduced working hours programs make balancing work and family easier for them. For example, married women with children under 18 now work fewer hours, averaging 35.3 hours per week. And also, maternity leave and childcare support programs are now more accepted socially, making it easier for women to balance work and family life. After all, it's not just about working harder for the family, it's about working smarter with some support.
Right, support that kind of helps you to allocate more time and effort in raising a child as a working mom. Now, what could be some other reasons, Jessica?
Definitely having so much support system, even the workplace and the society definitely helps, and I think is moving in the positive direction. But we also have to mention that because a lot of women are working in these corporates, they also feel that they feel burdened to actually, apply or even ask for maternity leave, because it is a cultural thing that is still settling in to society, especially here in South Korea. So even though there are some great projects and great subsidies, or even some great, necessary measures that are taking place in corporations, a lot of women are still finding it hard to take advantage of those things. Yeah.
Right, so there's still a long way to go because this is a relatively new support system here in Korea. Right, so despite these encouraging changes that Chuyeon and Cheska mentioned, many agree that once again, Korea has still room for a lot of improvement in breaking the maternal wall, which is a term used for barriers that push women out of the workforce, especially after having children. So I want to ask you, could you elaborate more on what kind of challenges these working moms often face at work?
Well, still there are many obstacles that the working women are facing currently, where the numbers have decreased. While the numbers have decreased, the 1 in 4 women still experiences these career break in their life. So according to the OECD's latest global economic outlook, the average employment rate for men and women in Korea remains significantly below the OECD average. This reflects how women with career breaks are not fully integrated into the workforce, which lowers the country's female working opportunity employment rate compared to other countries. And breaks in women's careers not only affect them personally, but also have some broader perspective. Look at that economic consequences for the country as well in the longer term, making this an issue we must tackle all together. Moreover, the quality of employment opportunities for working mothers continues to be a pressing issue. This is a quite important subject. Most married women with underage children work in sectors not in the areas that they used to work, but in healthcare and social welfare. That will be 17.5%, and education 15.1%, and retail 12.9%. While more married women are joining the workforce, many are still concentrated in low-paying industries, which is sort of a trend that hasn't changed much over the years.
This is definitely a very sad trend, because there must be a reason why these working moms used to choose the career field that they chose before getting married, but now we're kind of seeing them deviate to other career paths, especially low-paying sectors. Then, Cheska, are there any other areas that you'd like to see some improvement in regarding working moms?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Chuyeon and you mentioned something called the maternal wall, but in society we've always talked about this term called the glass ceiling.
Right.
So being a woman, there is already a ceiling when it comes to climbing the corporate ladder. Let me just emphasize that it is improving and we are changing our perspectives. But add on to that, having a child, having to take that long time off from work, and then having to come back to work and maintain and improve and even prove yourself that you are able to still hold the position.
Right, that you're still competent.
Exactly. That is a lot. That can be a lot for people who are wanting to excel in a corporate setting. So when it comes to pregnancy and career, it can be very difficult when it comes to the quote-unquote maternal wall. And I also like to emphasize that even in Korea still, there are a lot of in-laws and grandparents who still expect women to choose between becoming a mother or a career because they feel like it is the right thing to do. And also it is very difficult, especially in Korea, when you're working almost around the clock to not hire a nanny or a housekeeper. And Chuyeon is smiling because she probably knows exactly what I'm talking about. But situations like these require extra income and extra earning to support that kind of system. So it becomes a very difficult balance also, to handle when it comes to choosing between becoming a mother and working full-time.
Right, it's like as if they're facing two very hard thick walls, not only the glass ceiling but also the maternal wall.
Yeah, having to be a perfect mom.
And also a perfect employee at the workplace,
exactly.
Which makes everything more harder for these working moms. And I think, Chuyeon, you can relate to this a lot because you are a working mom of 2 beautiful children and you chose to continue your successful career. So I want to ask you, what kind of motivated you to keep going? Where do you get that energy from?
And I saw you smiling the entire time we were having this. I know you have a lot to
say.
I think I've got an hour to talk about that. But
not enough.
Not enough. Well, but I've never imagined not working, even after delivering children. Building the career I've always dreamt of is something I want to hold on. And plus, I believe it's important for my children to see a working mom who works very hard for them and family. It even makes them value things more, like the toys bought with hard-earned money. I always mention that this is from your mommy, And
mommy's blood, sweat, and tears.
That is correct. And among my friends who have taken career breaks, some deeply miss working, like the one who earned a PhD degree in the US. Now, stays at home with her children. She dreams of returning to her career, her field, but has ended up teaching kids in a very small study center in instead, but that's also valuable. And others have chosen to step back from work and fully embrace motherhood and home life, which I find very respectful and admirable. And honestly, raising children is 1,000 times harder than any other job, which is my personal opinion.
Right.
I respect their choice immensely, and hats off to them.
It's like a never-ending job. It's just an around-the-clock job, just raising your children.
And nobody knows that.
Right, which is why they need more recognition.
You don't get a flag from having sufficed all the necessities of becoming a mom,
That's definitely right. So, Jiyeon, as you're currently working, and you are working, as we always call you, a super mom, I think that it must have been really challenging, and it's still challenging for you to juggle work, household chores, and also caring for your children. So I want to ask you, what's the toughest part about being a working mom, are there any other ways that you've tried to overcome this?
Well, first of all, I try not to be a perfect mother. I try not to be a perfect mother and also working woman. And also, I don't have that mom guilt that the Korean people say. And managing everything at once is the hardest part. Helping my elders with homework while feeding my youngest, cooking, preparing their school bags and getting ready to leave this. All of that happens alongside my career commitments while I'm doing work, which makes me, try to balance all the stuff, but it's quite valuable and precious if I think about it. And then often, if I think about the works that I do, I'm so thankful of all the opportunities that I have. So, it's a very precious job.
And I think that your children will be very thankful to you because you're juggling everything like a superwoman.
Yes.
I think that it's really good that you are actually showing your children that you are a working mom, because if more children get to see more moms working, then they think that that's a norm, and they would naturally feel that we need a more solid support system here in the society.
Absolutely, I agree.
Then Cheska, I want to ask your experience. Although you're not a working mom, I heard and I know that you've seen a lot of working moms, especially one very close to you, right?
Too close, I think. So my mom is also a super mom in that she raised 3 of us, not just one, but 3 of us who are just a complete ruckus. Let me just phrase that. And had a full-time job while doing it. And actually, I had this conversation with my mom during Thanksgiving a couple of days ago. And, she actually said quite honestly and earnestly that she was very happy to see that the government and the society is changing, both in financial support and also sort of culturally about pregnant women and career working moms. But she was also very disappointed during her time because she did not have any financial support, any respect, or any kind of support from the family for having a children and trying to maintain her career. And because she didn't work in a corporation, she couldn't apply for paternity leave. So she just had to jump right back into her career to maintain it. So there is definitely a lot of work that needs to be done in order to kind of maintain or even improve the situation that we have right now. And also, Jiyeon mentioned something really important. My mom also said that there is absolutely no balance when it comes to having a career.
Right. No 50-50, right?
It's not. It's about, sometimes it's 20-80, sometimes it's a completely 90-10 and you feel like a terrible person. But it's just something that you have to deal with, and also requires a lot of support from the outside because it's impossible to handle everything from the inside.
Definitely. I think that this topic is worth discussing today as we're seeing more working moms, not only here in Korea, but around the world. For a broader perspective, we also asked our viewers whether working moms are common in their countries, and here are some of their responses. Our first comment of the day, Chirasbell 4740. In the U.S., many return to work after a period of maternity leave. A Beautiful Day 9908 says, in South Vietnam, most women return to work after giving birth. Some stay at home as housewives, but most choose to work after maternity leave. Bittersweet 12, many do here in New Zealand. Even our former Prime Minister resumed her duties after taking 6 weeks of maternity leave while in office.
Yes.
So we're definitely seeing more working moms around the world, which is the reason why we need to facilitate this discussion even more. Now, for even a more in-depth discussion, we're going to join by a millennial who changed her careers after having children. We'll be back after this break.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search our channel Arirang News. Click Community and leave a comment down below. Make a new type of news with us.
Joining us this Monday is Han-Woo Kim, a former Arirang News anchor who now runs a business that trains MCs. Welcome, Han-Woo, to the show, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Lovely to have you. So, Hannah, we know that you've had a long career in broadcasting as a news reporter and as a news anchor. So we want to ask you, what led you to step away from this career?
Well, what led me to step away from this career? Well, there is not just one simple answer to that question. It was basically a combination of different life's turning points. I felt that I was at a stage of my career where I wanted to pursue a master's degree. So I went to graduate school, went to Georgetown. And then when I came back, I was approaching my mid-30s, and there were some parental pressure for me to get married. And I was, at a transitional phase, and I got married, found my husband, which actually naturally brought a shift of priorities. And if you're married, you probably noticed, but when you get married, depending on who your spouse is and their personality and your tendencies, it could really determine the direction of where your life is headed. For example, I'm a risk taker, but my husband values safety. So you got to make some compromises. So after getting married, there was a natural shift of priorities. And after my first pregnancy, instead of focusing on advancing my career, I decided to take a step back. And by the way, I have 2 kids. I gave birth by C-section for both of them. So after my first C-section, I became a stay-at-home mom. My first pregnancy was harder than I expected. I thought I would bounce back right away, but I didn't. And my body didn't recover, so I was nowhere near to be on television or in the public eye. So what I want to mention is that, there's one thing about shifting priorities, but after you give birth, you also faced with this reality that, you don't realize how this break would end up, or how this break would create a gap in your career.
Okay, lovely to see you here. So, Hannah, what was the hardest part about stepping away from your work, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, the hardest part about stepping away from work was dealing with this new identity as a mom. To be honest, I was so lost after I became a new mom. I didn't know what to do with my life, because all throughout my life, I was a go-getter. I worked hard, I studied hard, got my master's at Georgetown. I worked as a news reporter at Arirang TV, news anchor, hosted TV shows. I was all go, go, go. But all of a sudden, I became a mom, and here's what I realized. Society puts a label in your life. It puts a title in your life, and my title was a mom. And people tell you, you're just a mom. Why are you trying to make your life more difficult by trying to work or do something? Why can't you just be happy being a mom? And, I do believe being a mom was the greatest gift that God gave me in my life. But at the same time, yes, a mother is what I do, but I am more than a mother. You know what I mean? And I knew that I had more gifts to give to this world. But here's the kicker. The reality is I couldn't find a full-time job or a part-time job when you're raising a kid, because a baby needs, full attention 24/7. Right. So I thought to myself, what can I do with just a laptop, raising my kids at home? So I decided to start my own online business. So it's been my 3rd year in business. I started my business on Instagram. Now I empower professionals, MCs, so they can overcome their English insecurities and show up confidently on stage.
I feel like your story could resonate to a lot of young women, or even women out there. So from your experience, if you could give us one tip to how to successfully come back to work after a break, what would it be?
So my number 1 tip for all ladies out there, moms out there, is to think outside the box. Your idea of going back to work, returning to work, that is what is destroying your life. You have to really be flexible about what type of work that you're getting into. If, tough truth, you're not the same person after you give birth. Your body needs time to heal. Mom brain is real. Mom brain, like after you give birth, your mind is not as sharp. So if you are trying to get back into the same job position you had before you had your baby, it's going to be so tough. And when you go back to work, there are all these things you have to juggle, like childcare and trying to keep up with everybody else. So I wouldn't really frame it as moms returning to work because life happens, but try to think outside the box. You can still monetize and make money and work using the same knowledge and talents that you have garnered across your life. It doesn't have to be a 9-to-5 office work. What I did was I was able to share my knowledge and my work using the online platform by being a digital entrepreneur. I do that with a laptop, very little money to get started, and I can still raise my kids doing that. And the most important thing is you have to find your why. Why are you doing this? Who are you trying to help? Because once you understand your why, it doesn't matter whether it's a 9-to-5 job or whether it's an online coaching service, you're going to be unstoppable. So I'm doing this because I want to make a better example for my kids. I want to show my girls that nothing is impossible. You can still chase your dreams, no matter the circumstances. And I could be working in front of a computer. I could be going into an office. It doesn't matter. So my tip is to think outside the box and find your why. And that will really solve a lot of problems.
All right, that was Hanul Kim, not only the mom of 2 beautiful girls, but also a very successful career woman. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Right, so ending off our episode today, it's a difficult reality that many new moms still find the idea of returning to work daunting and overwhelming. But we have to remember, as Hanul mentioned, they're not just mothers. Their identity and value extend far beyond that role. They're not defined solely by being someone's mom. They have their own names, identities, dreams, and careers, and they're an essential part of our society, especially, as Juyeon mentioned, as we grapple with a shrinking workforce due to the dwindling population. So ending off, I want to ask our panelists, how do you think that we can help more moms kind of refine their own identity too, and also build multi-identities, not only as a mom, but also as an individual?
Well, after listening to Hanul's interview, she almost made me cry. So I do think that happy moms equals happy mom means happy family.
Right.
You know? So, and I do believe that mothers need to be supported so they can work and raise their children with ease and with happiness. Also, so creating an environment where they can feel comfortable in both their careers and their parenting roles is quite important. And also flexible working options, like you mentioned earlier, like remote work, part-time hours, and reduced schedules must be expanded in order to provide, flexible working opportunities for mothers. And also, I do think, lastly, mothers are superheroes.
Mothers are indeed superheroes.
Yes,
so
indeed.
Coming with a more flexible support system to help these moms continue their careers, what do you suggest, Cheska?
I absolutely agree with everything Hanul said, and I also got emotional too. But I also think, as many of the great working women in history have stated, like Melinda Gates and Sheryl Sandberg, corporates should not force people to choose between families and work. And the more we invest in women, the better the society. And I would just like to add that we need more robust system, but system that can actually support all types of parenting, whether it be single parents, whether it be 2 working parents. I really hope the society sort of expands to provide enough support and fundamentals for these type of families too, because they will actually be a part of raising a great human being that will be essential to our society.
Right, and last but not least, can we just give a big shout out to all the working super moms out there? Go moms!
Thank you, Mom.
Thank you, Mom. I love you. And that's all from us today, but Newsden will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time. Special thanks today to Kwon Ji-hyun.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And Cheska Beinhoff.
Pleasure's always mine. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for watching, and see you tomorrow. We are News Generation.
How to survive in Korea. Workplace. Step 1. Lunchtime. The most important morning routine is to check today's menu. Food is essential for survival. Memorize today's menu. The highlight of office life. Lunchtime. Rice in the bottom left, soup in the bottom right. The top is for the sides. The sauce and the spoon go here. This is the basic layout, but it's a bit odd to switch rice and soup. When you're done, pour the leftovers into the soup bowl. It doesn't look that appetizing, so wait until others are done eating. Step 2. Neng, nep, nenep. These are the most used expressions.